Hello everyone, I'm the King of Candles and welcome back to the Minecraft Book Club, the series where I play Minecraft while talking about books. Today we're going to be talking about 1984 by George Orwell, specifically chapters 1 through 3 of part 2. And today we're going to be working on this little thing right here, a barn, so we can move all our animals out of these gross, disgusting holes over here. As you can see, they're kind of crowding the area, so hopefully we can move them into that barn by the end of the episode. So I was doing a bunch of planning for this barn, and I got it all planned out, and then I checked the materials I have, and I have like no oak logs, so I'm gonna have to farm up some oak, which is really annoying because I only have 10 trees over there. But yeah, we're gonna have a pretty cool barn by the end of this episode. Alrighty, so I've collected a couple stacks of oak logs. I have a skeleton farm. I forgot about that, so I was able to use a lot of it. And I'm kind of just digging out an area here. This is kind of the rough size of the barn, so I might move it over a bit this way. And then we'll have a little outside area for our cows and sheep. And honestly, this might be a little small, but I think for what I'm going for, it should be pretty good. So let's just start clearing out this area and then get started. So like always, I want to give a quick summary of the segment of the book we're going to be talking about today. And that was, of course, chapters 1, 2, and 3 from part 2. So previously, our boy Winston, right, he was worried that the fiction department girl was going to report him to the thought police, and he was going to be tortured and forced to commit suicide. So he was kind of just contemplating doing that beforehand. So now he's sitting at the desk in his office, and the fiction department girl comes by and like trips and falls and slips him a note. And he finally opens it, and he finds that the girl has said, just, I love you, which kind of threw me off. I didn't think that was going to be what was in the little slip of paper, especially with how much he had worried about her being a really strict follower of the party. So after he receives this note, he tries and sits by her at the canteen so they can talk. And after a couple tries, he ends up finally getting to talk to her. And once he does this, she gives him directions to meet up with her at a square so they can talk more in private. So I think a few days go by, or it might be the same day, but he ends up going to this square. A similar thing to the canteen also happens when they meet up in the square. She basically just tells him that he needs to meet up with her in some sort of forest. So he ends up a few days later, I think on like a Friday maybe, he goes and visits her in this like area in the middle of the woods. And she leads him to a small clearing where she kind of confesses that she's not a really good citizen and she hates the government basically. And then the book gets smutty again with some adult content, adult scenes. And the adult scenes, right, it kind of feels to Winston like a rebellion more than just doing stuff out of joy. And I'll get more into that later. But they basically keep meeting up for the next 2 chapters. And like the very most recent scene, he's basically talking about how his wife was kind of, not into the adult stuff. And they talk about how he should have just killed her on a hike that they went on. And he comes to the conclusion that it would have accomplished nothing. Because the people that are brainwashed are not necessarily the enemy that he wants to fight. And then I think the girl kind of disagrees with him. But yeah, that's essentially the summary of the last segment. So this is going to be what our barn looks like. Super creative color palette. As you can see, I haven't done this exact same color palette before. but you know, it's gonna work. It's gonna be great. And then we'll have a little area back there for cows and sheep and whatnot. I was originally planning on having all of them in here, but that's definitely not going to be the case. I don't know. Once I get enough redstone and stuff like that, we could go underneath and have 4 automatic farms that are just a lot, you know, more efficient than having to jump into these farms and pens and kill the animals that way. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is how thirsty this guy is, because he goes from mistrusting this woman. He's like, oh, this woman's gonna get me killed because she's with the thought police. How quickly he goes from that to, oh, I'm in love with this girl too. She's the best thing in the world, yada yada. You know, very quick. I mean, he was fantasizing about her before that, which he does confess to her, like, that he wanted to rape her, and she kind of just laughs about it, which is odd. But I don't know. I thought that was just a really quick turnaround. Because if I was living in this society and I was that paranoid, there's no way that I would be trusting of a girl that quick, especially if I was mistrusting her because I thought she was working for the thing that's actively trying to kill me in my mind. You know, that just seems like an awful strategy to me. I would definitely think this girl is a psyop. And then more on the paranoia side of stuff, I thought it was a bit freaky that they were scared of mics being planted in the trees. It's like a very strict surveillance state, but I guess they don't have every tree because they were able to make love in the clearing. Honestly, though, the surveillance stuff doesn't creep me out that much because I grew up thinking that that was already the case. I think Zootopia, of all movies, Zootopia was what convinced me that we lived in a surveillance state. There's a scene in Zootopia where they're all checking the security cameras around the city. I thought that every police department had the amount of surveillance footage that they did in the movie. So I've always believed that that was the case everywhere, but apparently that is not. But you'll definitely see the mass surveillance stuff in areas obviously like China, right? Very famous for their AI facial detection and social credit score. There's a lot of memes on that. So even if you're not familiar with the Chinese government, you've probably heard about your social credit. I thought the book also had a very good way of talking about fear and hate, because Winston was basically talking about how everyone fears and hates something now. It's that it's infested itself into areas it probably shouldn't. And this is basically what I wanted to talk about with the sex stuff that was mentioned. He said that it kind of felt less like a happy, joyful thing. I mean, he said it did feel happy and joyful because it was with someone that actually wanted to do it. But the problem essentially boils down to, because they hate the government so much, they end up doing it as an act of rebellion, which is, in a way, just a hatred of the government. And this kind of ties into what we read in Mr. Comer's book, right? Because he talked about how a lot of ads deal with trying to exploit fear and hate because those are the strongest human emotions. And if they can get you on that, then you're kind of hooked. And that's how I'm viewing what this 1984 government is doing, because they're essentially just brewing hatred among their citizens, especially with events such as the hating, where everyone decides to hate something for a while, or even things like hatred of the government even bleeding into private romantic life. So if you take away anything from this, just know that fear and hate are easily used against humans in order to manipulate you or otherwise control your emotions. I feel like this roof looks a little weird, but you know, most Western buildings look weird anyway. And I do plan to make a video eventually talking about building and improving as a builder, because I kind of suck at as a builder right now. not the greatest, but I would like to improve. So I might have a video on me kind of just improving my building prowess eventually. Not anytime soon. I'm a bit busy with my content, but maybe in October sometime. I can see a lot of channels on YouTube, and they are all pretty darn good at building. And who knows, maybe building's not my greatest strength. I'll probably be better at redstone than anything, and Lord knows I suck at PvP. So it's definitely redstone for me. I just gotta figure out how it works. But once I do, it's gonna be cake. Because I know how to program, and it's basically similar. I hope. I don't know. I have yet to build anything out of redstone. And some of that stuff is real complicated. So who knows? Who knows? And I am slowly learning how to build a bit. I think I do like that. I'm not sure. Let's try half slabs on this side and see if it... Yeah, I like the stairs. It just adds a nice sloped characteristic to the barn that I want. Although, looking at it now, I think it might look a little better without those half slabs on the end. So just the stairs. So it gives it a nice curve. At least the best you can do with stairs and slabs. So after getting a little more acclimated to each other, they start talking a bit more. And Winston is actually convinced by this girl to start doing a lot more, a lot more of the good government stuff, like attending charity and other stuff like that. Ooh, I don't know what I'm gonna do with the roof here. Maybe we just ignore it. Yeah, that's not horrible. It looks pretty weird, but I don't care, honestly. I could just shorten the windows. Yeah, that looks better. But like I was saying, Winston starts doing a lot more of these charity things, participating in all the government programs that all the good party members partake in. And I thought the philosophy behind doing this, that the girl, what was her name? She did give us her name already. Julia, that was her name, Julia. So Julia's philosophy behind this is that when you're doing all the small things, following all the small rules, people will be more bound to ignore you when you break the big ones. So it's a nice cover, right? And that explains her character a bit more because she, was a little goody two shoes for the government, but she's basically doing that because she can use that as a cover to get away with other things. Because as long as you're doing most of the small stuff that other people might not tend to do, when you do the bad stuff, you're more likely to be overlooked. So yeah, Julia also dropped a little lore about where she works in the fiction department. And I forgot if this is just a previous job or what she's doing currently, but she is in the smut department of the fiction department. And I thought this was a really cool little world building that Orwell added, but the government actually makes the illegal pornography and they sell it to the proles, which are all the poor people. And because it's illegal, a lot of the proles think like, "Oh shoot, this is sketchy," and they get more thrilled over it, so it sells better. I just thought that was interesting. And that like only the most perfect women get chosen to go and write the smut because the government views it as very easily corruptible. Now, honestly, these chapters were very smutty because most of the stuff I have to talk about is just smut related. Who would have thought? Orwell, the biggest romance author of the 20th century, but here we are. And he basically describes that the government had taken away the joyful aspects of making love because when you take away the most exciting thing in life, something else has to become the most exciting, right? So when it gets taken away, people get joy in other means. And in that case, it's going to be the government incentivized programs such as the hating or, advertisements against the enemy, aka propaganda, stuff that benefits the government instead. And I'm honestly thinking interior-wise, we might just add the fence, because I think it looks a little better. Oh shoot, I was gonna do something cool with the roof. Guys, don't worry. I'm having something cool with the roof. Boom, boom, boom. So that'll just add some more character to the roof, I hope. So that way when you look at it from an area such as this area, it looks pretty stupid. Let's add a different color. Yeah, I can already tell that that's gonna look a lot better. Yeah, I think that looks a lot better. Ideally, we could have dark oak bumps, but I only have spruce, oak, and birch, so we are kind of limited there. We definitely do want, I think, 6 trapdoors just for little barn door here. Maybe on the other side too. Trapdoors are so expensive, man. They do not have to be this pricey. It's crazy sometimes. And I was also thinking, let's grab some sticks, because some signs will look pretty cool here. I need at least that many. I know that much. We're just going to put them up here, like that. Yeah, that looks cool. And then we can just add random signs along the edge of the building like that. Perhaps even some stairs. Yeah, that adds a little bit more to the building. So just like that, we're done with the main barn. So now I think I just need to form a little fence around the area so we can, put some of our animals here. Although I will say I think a fence post right there would look good. Yeah. So yeah, now we're officially done with the main building. I have no idea what I'm going to put in here. I was thinking I might bring my horse over here so he's not crawling around my storage room constantly. Yeah, let's put this fence up. Alright, so I've cleared a bit of an area here, and I'm just going to go through and add some fence around here. I think I'm going to have to move these, though. Yeah, because I think we're going to have to move this road a bit further away from right here. Our shovel is also going to die here soon, which means I need to go get mending, so that is no longer an issue. So I think I want to build like the entrance to the area first, which I think will be like right here. And I think I want to go up like 4. And on each side of these, I'm going to have a little staircase. And then we'll cover the tops of these with some half slabs. So this is supposed to be like a little gate you see at the front of a ranch, if you've ever been to a ranch or seen one alongside the highway as you drive by. They usually look like this, at least in my head. There we go. We have the entrance to our barn or ranch or whatever. And we just gotta fence this off. So I just have a few more points to go over on the book. First one is related to what we were talking about earlier. Usually there's 2 things that are joyful in a person's life, right? And that's, I guess, intercourse and family, right? And the book was saying that the government could not find a way to make children and stuff less appealing. So he was saying that the government basically turned kids against their parents, right? Kids are told to spy against their family and report them if they're, you know, dealing in thought crimes or anything like that. So children have been trained to hate their parents and act as spies for the government. So by making children spy against their families, you're kind of ruining the happiness there, and that's the way the government was able to do that in this setting. So families were too joyful and necessary to society, so the government had to find a way to ruin it in a different way. They can't just make families illegal. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that the government was tasked with removing the joy out of a lot of things in life, and they were struggling with families, and the only way they discovered that they could do that is by turning children against their parents using, of course, the education system. I think if I can, I want to put a chicken coop right here. You know, it's not the best thing in the world, but so we just got to move all the animals over now. And the last thing I want to talk about is how Winston is convinced that because of what he's done, he is essentially destined to die in the next few years. So I'm not sure if I agree with Winston on this, that his death is essentially solidified because of the way he's acting in defiance to the government. It definitely is more likely, but I think he's a bit pessimistic in his belief that he's done for. But it's hard not to be pessimistic when you live in a awful society like 1984. But yeah, the idea of solidifying your death in defiance of the government isn't something unique to 1984. I know the founding fathers, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, were, signing their death sentence because they'd be wanted for treason. These sheep are not following. Yuck. And I need to sleep. I think he's just being overly pessimistic in his belief that he is going to die soon because he's rebelling against the government. But who knows? You know, this is a famous book, and so far I haven't really seen anything crazy about this book. It's kind of just a normal dystopian. But basically, as long as he doesn't get caught, I think he'll be fine. So yeah, honestly, I don't know if this was the first dystopian novel, and that's why it's so famous, but it's doing nothing crazy in the dystopian genre. And I've read Animal Farm by George Orwell, and I think it gets to the point a lot quicker and better than it's happening here in 1984. So I'm not too big of a fan of this book yet, but we'll see. We're still not even halfway through. So who knows, maybe some of the crazy big reveals are what make this book amazing, but I have yet to see anything that really catches my eye. But yeah, once we get some redstone going, or at least become a little richer in our materials, these animals are just going to be cosmetic. Give me the egg, please. Thank you. Because we'll have the automatic chicken farm, the automatic pig farm, yada yada. And we'll just go through and replace some of the blocks with packed mud. Should probably make some coarse dirt though. Oh yeah, so I think that adds a bit of some texture to the area. Perhaps another coarse, whoa, not there. Coarse dirt there, and then, I don't know, coarse dirt over here. Yeah, that adds some character to the chicken coop and little pig pen. And then these guys are just normal ranch animals, so they don't need anything special. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all for watching. For next episode, we're just gonna be reading chapters 4 and 5 from part 2. So that'll be nice and fun. But yeah, thank you guys for watching today's episode. Really appreciate it. We're at 10 subscribers now, which is crazy. So thank you for that. But yeah, that'll be all for today. So thank you all for watching and have a great one.